Fiskearter så vel som asteroider oppkalt etter ham, og han har flere følgere på Twitter enn Norges statsminister og Madonna til sammen. Nå den uforsonlige ateisten og evolusjonsbiologen Richard Dawkins tilbake med bind 2 av sine memoarer.
Professor Dawkins har blivit en slags stjärna inom vetenskapen. Genom sina böcker och tv-dokumentärer har han gjort sig känd för att förklara evolutionsläran.
The idea is evolution by natural selection.
Han anser dessutom att religion är skadlig och går hårt åt sina meningsmotståndare.
That's not the way people talked in the 19th century. It's a fake. So it's not beautiful, it's a work of charlatanry.
Would the world be a better place if religion disappeared tomorrow?
Yes.
När han får tid över spelar han elektronisk klarinett och en stolt ägare av en första upplaga av Darwins om arternas uppkomst.
Please welcome Richard Dawkins. I do like your tie.
Thank you very much. Oddly enough, this is not one of my wife's ties. Usually I wear ties...
Your wife's ties?
Usually I wear ties hand-painted by my wife.
Oh,
They're all animal
okay.
ties. This was hand-painted by a fan, a young man from Italy, and I think he noticed that how much I liked animal ties from my wife, and so he gave me this beautiful stag tie. I'm wearing it because I think it's rather more Swedish than the other ones.
You're out with your memoirs.
Brief Candle in the Dark. It's
Yes,
the second volume of my memoirs, yes.
And we were talking about feeling like a grown-up. Lynn was talking about she felt like a grown-up. And I read an interview with you that you said you did not. You felt like a juvenile.
Yeah, I feel about 22, I suppose.
Why is that?
Never really grown up. No, I mean, I just feel like a very young person, and I know I'm not, but that's how I feel.
You did have a test, I know, and we had a guest on last week, Karl Ove Knausgård, the author, and he told us about this test he did. It was a DNA test.
DNA, yes.
Yes, but I know that you had a more thorough
yes, I'm one of the rather few people who've had my entire DNA sequence done. This was actually for a television program, and although the television program was made, it wasn't quite as originally planned. The idea was that I would have my DNA sequence completely and put on a disc, and then the disc would be buried for 500 years, and in 500 years they would dig it up, and by then the technology would be available to make a clone of me. It was going to be an excuse for exploring all sorts of different things. In the end, the television program turned out to be something quite different. It was called Sex, Death, and the Meaning of Life.
Okay, and you were still in it?
Oh, yes, I was presenting it.
Let's talk about evolution, which has been, I mean, your field your whole life. What is the most common misconception about evolution?
Oh, probably that it's a theory of random chance. It obviously can't be a theory of random chance. If it was a theory of random chance, it couldn't possibly explain why all animals and plants are so beautifully well designed. I mean, birds fly, fish swim, moles dig, gibbons swing through the treetops. They're all beautifully designed. And if it were random chance, of course that couldn't happen. So obviously, what Darwin did was to discover the alternative to random chance, the only known alternative to random chance, which is natural selection.
Darwin talked about the survival of the fittest.
Yes.
But I wonder then, why do we help each other?
We help each other. Well, nowadays, of course, we're very different. Modern humans are very different. But wild animals help each other for two main reasons. One, they help close kin because they have a high probability of sharing the same genes. And so a gene for helping kin is likely to be passed on to future generations. That's one reason. The other reason is reciprocation. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'll do you a good turn in the expectation that you'll do me a good turn later. Those two are the fundamental evolutionary reasons why we help each other. But humans, of course, are much more complicated, and we have grafted culture on top of evolution, and so it's a much more complicated answer.
But it's also that we really need each other.
Yes.
In a way. Can you explain everything from evolution?
Everything to do with life ultimately is explained in terms of evolution, yes. But that doesn't mean that the explanation is going to be a simple or direct one. Nobody would be fool enough to try to explain Shakespeare or Mozart in purely evolutionary terms. Ultimately, it must be explicable, but you don't actually do that in practice any more than you explain how a computer plays chess in terms of noughts and ones in transistors and integrated circuits.
Quite often you end up in quite tough discussions, and you're famous for that, because also very often about atheism. And I wonder, looking back as you do in your memoirs, do you sometimes regret it? I mean, you're on television debating, you're on Twitter debating. Do you ever regret like a tweet?
Well, Neil, I'm a very nice person, you know.
I know. I can tell.
I don't go out seeking argument. I don't go out seeking confrontation. But I do value truth. I value clarity, and sometimes the combination of truth and clarity does prove a bit incendiary.
Last time you were here, speaking about debate, last time you were here with the singer of the band The Killers.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Remember?
Yes, I do.
And he's a Mormon.
Yes.
And you, well, there was what I would call a heated debate about...
You invited a heated debate.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm a television host. Of course I did. Of course I did. That's my job. And it was quite interesting. And I don't know if you read it, but in the singer of The Killers, he gave an interview later in a British newspaper where he was asked about this.
Yeah.
And for one thing, he's really keen on meeting you again, and because he has a lot of things that he didn't get to say. And
I mean, I do sympathise with that. That's always the feeling you get afterwards. Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing is he characterized you. Did you read that? No? Yeah. He characterized you as an old lemon tree.
Well...
And himself, he said, he's an old lemon tree while I'm a peach.
You know you've lost an argument when the best you can do is cast aspersions at someone's age.
Probably. Do you react? I mean, some people, when you talk about atheism, and you claim to talk about the truth, really.
Yes.
And the problem is, of course, that most people, I mean, if they really believe something, they claim to talk about the truth. And it's, in that sense, you're also accused from time to time of being some kind of fundamentalist. Can you sympathize with that? Can you understand that perspective?
No. The thing about the truth is we know what's true by evidence. That's the only way we know what's true. And so fundamentalism has nothing to do with it. Fundamentalism means you believe what's in some book. That's the only reason you believe. You're fundamentally committed to this one book. I am committed to a truth which you get from evidence. And if somebody teaches me, somebody tells me some evidence that goes against what I believe, then I will change my mind. And a fundamentalist doesn't change his mind. A fundamentalist knows what's true because it's written in his holy book. So I'm the very opposite of a fundamentalist. I'm an evidencist.
What I think is difficult to understand is that you say you embrace doubt.
Yes.
But not in if it's about religion, because you're quite sure there is no God.
No, not. I will change my mind tomorrow if somebody produces evidence.
So you're open to that there might be a God?
Of course, yes.
But wouldn't you then be an agnostic more than an atheist?
Yes, well, of course. Everybody has to be an agnostic. You can't actually be sure that something does not exist. I mean, we're all agnostic about fairies and hobgoblins and unicorns. And tooth fairies. I don't know what you have here. Trolls, I suppose. But
we have it all.
We have it all.
We have
So-
a fairy sitting here, you know. He
yes,
used to be a fairy.
remember that, yes. So, of course, we're agnostic. If you say, can you prove that so-and-so does not exist? No, you cannot. But you live your life as though it doesn't, unless there's some good reason to suppose that it does. There is no good reason to suppose that any kind of God exists.
But why did Bach compose music? I mean, he believed, and he made some of the music that has meant more to mankind. I mean, he's the greatest
Of course,
composer.
absolutely. I mean,
and he
I
believed
adore...
in these stories
Yeah.
that have been told for thousands and thousands of years. Without those stories,
Well,
what would we have
I have
been?
said that if I had lived before Darwin, I would have believed in God. I mean, Bach lived 200 years before Darwin, so no wonder. Darwin showed why you don't need a God. Bach didn't have the advantage of that. Bach composed
I
the
don't
most
see-
beautiful music in honor of God. But mind you, he was also paid. That was the other thing, of course, that the church... I mean, great artists usually go where the money is, and so that's a more mundane
You
reason.
can't sit here and reduce the music of Bach
I'm not
to a
abusing it. I
question
think the music of
money.
Bach is sublime.
I'm just saying that these stories that we tell, some of us doubt, some of us believe, some of us don't believe at all, but these stories have followed us as the stories of the big religions for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And
They do.
how
It doesn't make them true.
But what is true? For you, the only truth is what can be evidenced?
Yes, truth about the real world. I mean, I'm not talking about things like moral truth. I'm not talking about things like the truth about what's good or what's bad. I'm talking about truth about the world. The only reason to believe something about the world or the universe is evidence, yes.
Would you call
Yes.
yourself a spiritual person?
We're playing with words now. I mean, this is just a
yeah,
semantic thing.
not
If,
entirely.
I mean, if by spiritual you mean a sense of awe, a sense of wonder, yes, I'm a spiritual person. If you mean something supernatural, something beyond the physical world, no. So it depends what you mean.
What about you, Rolf?
No, I think I'm a spiritual person, not to the nature, to the music, to the art, everything there. I'm a spirit and a big of it.
Yes.
And in one way about the truth, my work is a lot about lying. I mean,
Yes.
lying in a good way, so you make the truth.
Well, an actor is in the business of lying. I suppose.
Yeah.
That's right.
Even an author, maybe.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's all about finding the truth through making up. I mean, I think a much more interesting word than spirituality, because that's so misused, is the word grace. I mean, do you believe in you know, in that, in grace, in something as in music, or just...
What do you mean by grace?
I'd like to know what you mean by...
I don't use the
do you have
word.
that? Is that a word that's even in your vocabulary?
No,
No.
it isn't. But
Not only as a religion.
I don't want you to get away with saying that Bach somehow belongs to the supernatural, because Bach wrote beautiful music inspired by religion, which I appreciate. I'll wager as much as anybody else. I mean, I adore Bach. I don't want anybody to get away with the sort of thought that somehow an atheist cannot appreciate the great art, the great music, the great poetry of the world. Far from it. We can. We do.
I think I'm going to let that be the last word tonight. It's always so interesting talking to you. Thank you so much for coming back to the show, Richard.
Thank you
Dawkins.
very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here with us tonight. Med